Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, the unofficial start of Big Ten football season, and it's a great honor for me to have the opportunity to be here and go first to represent our coaches and have you guys lob all these great questions at me so everybody else that follows can have some fun. But first and foremost, I want to welcome Maryland and Randy Edsall and Rutgers and Kyle Flood. They're great universities to the Big Ten. I've known both gentlemen for a while, and it's terrific to have them join our conference. And I'd also like to welcome James Franklin, who I've gotten to know quite well, to Penn State here from a conference standpoint. I want to thank the media for your support. It's been very interesting for me in the 9 years that I've had the opportunity to be in this league to watch the way that our interactions have changed and evolved and grown from a standpoint of college football programs and the media. And really appreciate your support. I know we're on BTN, but to see the influence that BTN has had on our program to really sell our brand nationally has been a great influence to the success of our program, and we're very thankful for our media partners and look forward to working with you here in the future. Looking at our program in particular, very proud of the staff stability that we have. It's really interesting to see that we're one of, I think, only a handful of programs that have had the same offensive defensive coordinator for 60 years or more, and I believe we're the only program in the country to keep our 9 assistants for 4 straight years. And to have that kind of staff stability has been terrific from the way that we wanted to build our program from a foundational standpoint with the continuity and for our student athletes to be able to experience a lot of consistency in the way that they're being coached and the way that the expectations are for them on a daily basis. Look in the rearview mirror, the last 2 years have been interesting. 2012, we were very fortunate, had great success and stayed relatively healthy. Last year, we didn't achieve the success that we expected in Evanston, and we hope we have some sort of calming down of the injury standpoint. That's not an excuse, but the reality is we didn't do a good enough job as a coaching staff getting our next level and our depth prepared a year ago, and it really showed up in the mistakes that we made down the stretch. And we've all owned that in Evanston. We've taken that challenge on in the offseason, and I believe you're going to see a much improved football team this season. Looking at 2014, as my colleague to my right mentioned, we've got 18 returning starters, a quarterback in Trevor Siemian that's going to be going back to kind of the way that was my first 7 years as the head coach, or 6 years as the head coach, with knowing who our quarterback is going into fall camp. He's thrown, for going on 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. That's more than Persa and Kafka had going into their senior years. So to have that kind of experience at the quarterback position hopefully will be a great jolt for our offense that we all know as Wildcats needs to improve. We weren't where we wanted to be a year ago, and it starts and ends at our quarterback position, and we're excited to have Trevor back. We've got a very daunting and exciting home football schedule for our fans and for all of our students. To be at home for a month to start the season before we go on the road, including our bye week, it will be critically important that we start fast. And, we're really proud of our young men. You look at the academic year that we had this year, I can argue that we're the best, we've got the best student athletes in college football. We've got a cumulative team GPA above a 3.0 for all 4 classes. And that's something special. And we don't take that for granted in Evanston. And incredibly proud of our young men with what they're doing in the classroom. We obviously had quite a bit of distractions this spring, and have a team GPA above a 3.0 again in the spring quarter. Just is something spectacular to me. We're committed to developing our young men, not only on the field but also off the field, and to see that we had 46 young men have some sort of internship or summer job between the winter and in the spring and in the summer, with just a few companies like Goldman Sachs and Kraft Foods, Mercedes-Benz, Medtronic. I can keep going on and on to name a few to see how we're developing our guys off the field. Really proud of our staff and the job that they've done. And then lastly, we really needed to improve our strength this offseason, and we had 176 personal records in the weight room in the 3 core lifts by our student athletes, and that's a great job by our strength coach, Jay Hooten, but most importantly by our guys working their tails off to improve in an area that we identified that we were lacking last year. This is a line of scrimmage league like most of the power conferences, and we just weren't good enough up there on the offensive and defensive line last year. We needed to improve our strength. I believe we've done that. Now the challenge is to come together in training camp that we start a week from now. So I'll wrap that up, and how about some questions, please?
If you have a question for Coach Fitzgerald, please raise your hand. We'll send a microphone holder over to you, and you can ask your question. We'll start up here on my left.
After all the close losses last year, how do you keep your team to not get down on themselves, and you yourself not get down on yourself?
Well, you know, what's fun at our place is the leadership team. And I'll go back to last fall, and we were just talking about it as a staff here last week. You know, we went through a stretch that wasn't a lot of fun. And for a number of weeks, the first person that we saw in our football office on Sunday was our great athletic director, Jim Phillips. And he's sitting there pumping our tires up as a coaching staff as we were frustrated in the way that we were coaching our guys and the way that we were performing on the field. So first of all, we're going to reestablish who we are this year. We're going to get back to what we do and how we do things, and that starts and ends in our locker room. And the guys have really done, I think, a terrific job through this offseason of really identifying what our standards are in the core of our team, and that's in the locker room. And now we're going to come together in camp with our freshmen and hopefully get back to where we've been, and that's competing for championships.
Stay on the left side of the room here, Fitz.
Hey, Fitz, you touched on this, but what's it like going into fall camp with only one starting quarterback as opposed to some previous years?
It's kind of going back to the way it was for about, my first 5 or 6 years, Teddy. As I look at the experience that Trevor has, it gives me great confidence. I think the steps that he took from a leadership standpoint this offseason, to hear a guy that's pretty much laid back, kind of a Luke Bryan type personality, to become a very, I think, number one leader who leads by example, but then number two, really starting to lead from the way that he addresses the guys and taking over the complete ownership of our football team. Like most coaches, if you got a quarterback, you got a chance, and we feel like we have not only Trevor, but also pretty good depth at that position. I look forward to seeing how that depth competes here in camp to see who's 2, 3, and moving forward, but I'm excited about that position.
Stay on that side of the room, Fitz.
Fitz, how much of an emotional leader is Venrick Mark? How huge is that to have him back this year? And do you think kind of maybe emotionally hurt the team last year when he went down?
Well, he's a pretty passionate young man. He's not going to be outspoken, pounding his chest in front of the team, but when you watched him in the way that he played in a very short, small snapshot that would have been his senior year a year ago, I think you see the passion, number one, that he plays with. It's the same way that he works every day. But we've got pretty solid depth at that position. We've been able to turn, I think, a relative, what's been perceived as maybe a lack of depth in our program into a position of depth right now. And, that's always going to be tested and with what we do offensively. And it's great to have him back, but I'm also looking forward to watching the way that whole group competes. I think we've got solid depth there and looking forward to watching it unfold, but it's great to have him back. No question about that. He's a dynamic player. And to have him back in the fold, not only in the backfield, but also in the return game is significant for us.
Move to the other side of the room, down front, and then one toward the back.
Coach, when you look at the preseason polls, you kind of see the Wisconsin and the Iowa and the Nebraska, and kind of the theme there is old school, grinded out football. In the early stages, do you think that's the identity of the West Division at this stage?
As I look at maybe to the past, there's been great competition on our side. I think all of us, you look at our games against Nebraska, for instance, in the last 3 years have been nothing less than entertaining. And you can go across with each one of our common opponents that we've had. I think it's going to be a terrific division within college football. It's a well-coached, very talented group, and it's nothing new to us not to be picked to be a part of the preseason hype. We're not a preseason hype type place, I guess. So hopefully play a little bit more consistent than we did a year ago. But it should be very challenging and very daunting, and especially for our fans, I think it's going to be an outstanding side of the conference.
Pat Fitzgerald, Pat 40 from Yahoo Sports.
Hi, Fitz. How are you?
Good. You said that you're going to get back to who you are.
Yeah.
How did you lose track of who you are, and how do you go about getting that back?
Well, I think we lost track, first of all, from really not sticking to what we value, Pat. You look at the way we didn't respond very well from things that were out of our control, and that's been the hallmark of our program, and that's ultimately my responsibility as the leader. And so I took that personally this offseason, and we really worked hard in everything that we did to put our guys in difficult situations to force them to respond. And, that was disappointing a year ago. And again, football, 72-degree room or training camp when everybody's, feeling great is easy to respond. But when adversity strikes, and we didn't do a good enough job of that a year ago. I look at the way that we played up front on both sides of the ball. We were not successful enough to be consistent in this league. From stopping the run, running the ball, protecting the quarterback, knocking the quarterback down defensively. all those types of things. So, I'm not going to bore you with all the minor details, but we've got a lot of work to do. I really like the new rule change that we've been able to have this summer, where we've had a chance to spend some time with our guys. We know more about our football team today than maybe we ever have in the past going through summer workouts. So I think we're in a positive place moving forward, but we've got a lot of work to do here, especially in the defensive line with as many guys as we head out in spring practice. But all those guys I expect to be ready to go when we start practice a week from now, and that'll be a critical position and critical position battles that we'll need to have figured out pretty quickly.
We'll stay on that side of the room in the middle here.
Coach Rex Shield with SB Nation Bucky's fifth quarter. It surely helps that Northwestern in general is a great academic university, but what can you attest the football program's academic success to? Is it the tutors? Is it the academic staff in general? Is it you personally and your coaching staff? Is it guys pinpointing, when you're recruiting, make sure that they're obviously eligible and that they can, carry through their academics from year 1 to year 4 or year 5?
I believe it starts in recruiting. Our young men are great students because their parents or their family unit at home that made education the number one priority in their life at some point in their life. Number 2, it's a culture in our locker room. Doing the right thing, being not just average at anything you do, but being great and striving for excellence in everything that you do is the expectation. And our players own that. In the way that our upperclassmen look after our underclassmen, and our younger players, to me is really impressive to see that kind of really servant leadership and being selfless and teaching the guys, how to time manage and how to prioritize their life. We've got great academic support with Kristen Kane and our assistant coaches and Kristen's staff. And then it's not just football at Northwestern. Quite frankly, it starts at the top with our admissions department, our president, and the way that the culture is on our campus. You choose to go to Northwestern for a reason. That's prepared for the next 40 or 50 years, not just the next 4 or 5 years. And you look at the academic success we're having. I believe we've got about 15 guys right now bouncing around the NFL. We believe you can do both from our great place. It's to prepare for life and have plan A prepared, and that's being a great student and prepared for life, and plan B being prepared for the NFL.
Time for one final question over here on our far right, Kevin.
Fitz, what was the mood of the team like, the dynamic of the team when the hearing was going on with the union, and did that change at all after the hearing, and is it better today?
Yeah, I'm proud of the maturity that our guys demonstrated throughout the whole process that we went through this offseason. As I look back and reflect upon the experiences that our young men went through and our entire football program went through, I think that's what jumps out to me is their maturity. As we visited throughout the whole offseason, I believe there's no more unified football program in the country. We've been through more since probably January than most, and it's been nothing but a positive and nothing more than unifying in our locker room and throughout our entire football program. So I think we're a leg up from that standpoint. And as I look at where we go in the future, hopefully that'll just be something that we can draw upon. And it's definitely been able to, I think, be a springboard from a leadership standpoint for our guys to really identify, especially someone like Trevor, to see him come out and say, this is my football team, and to see the way that our seniors and leadership council have stepped up to say, this is what our football team is about right now, to me will hopefully pay dividends as we move forward in the future, as we go through the adversity that I talked about with Pat earlier.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks. Have a great rest of the day. Go Cats.